just reminded, this morning about life and living. I did a wedding yesterday and performed the wedding in the rain. It was cold, windy, and rainy. It was outside, actually. We did the wedding on an acreage down at Casa Rio, and just my connection of being in the community for years, of knowing people, and just someone asked me. They said, "John, would you be willing to marry my daughter and her fiance?" And I said, "Absolutely." And just being able to come alongside of that family in a time like that, this is living. The bride, how you've been to weddings and everything unfolds and everybody comes down and the grooms come in, the parents come in, the bridesmaids come in, and you get together the night before and you practice all these things. And they just touched my heart because they had a symbolic gesture of a balloon that was tied to a railing. And when the bride came out, they released the balloon, and the balloon was signifying Grandpa, who had passed on and wasn't able to be there. This is living. Life has those moments of endurement. Life has those moments of, perplexity and complexity, and we get to a place where we're so torn, and sometimes we're so lost, and we feel so broken. Isn't that true? This is living. But what is it to live? Sometimes, I'm a life coach as well, and I have a business, and I do that. And I've been able to life coach, executives, and I've been able to come alongside of young people and young couples and young adults, and just being able to help them really get unstuck. Because there's times in our life when we find ourselves in a place of just feeling that. We feel stuck. I don't know if there's a better word to describe it, but we just don't have traction. We don't have anything, it could be our workplace, it could be a relationship, and we just feel ourselves stuck. I had been on staff at a larger church in town here for 13 years, and pastoral ministry for I don't know how many years, and got to a place where I was just burnt out. People had sucked the life out of me. Do people suck the life out of you too, or is that just me? Yeah, just being honest and transparent here. People, we're broken, and sometimes our brokenness and sometimes our hurt and sometimes those things, we carry them and we affect people around us, right? And I'd been in that place of I was burnt out. And to be honest with you, I can honestly say I was done with pastoral ministry. I was done. I was finished. I was no longer going to be a pastor. And so, my wife is a pastor's wife, always has been, but she's always been in the business world. And I always wondered how that would be to be in business, involved in business. So I went into the business world for a couple of years. And I'm minding my own business. And, I never got angry with God. I never, looked at God and said, you know what, God, sometimes we get to that place. I wasn't there. And I wasn't looking angry at him, I was just like, okay, what do you have for me next? And I was in that next place in my life. What is the next? What's coming now? Right? I'm finding myself here and everything else, but what's coming now? And I was minding my own business and just going through the motions, and I found myself filling a pulpit at a little church on the west side of town. I'm from the east side of town. And you guys know Saskatoon, the river runs through it, right? It's divided in half. I never came over here. I didn't have to come over here. Everything I needed was over there. My life, my living, all those different things. And I started coming to this church, and a friend of mine had pastored this church, a good friend of mine, Micah Parkinson. And it was kind of funny. I've shared this story, but one night I get this message, and it was months before that. And Micah said to me, he said, "John, I think that you're going to be the next pastor at Carpenter's Church." He said, "Would you be interested?" I said, "Not on your life." And not on mine either, And my wife, I said, "Hey, Charmaine, guess what?" And I shared with her, and Charmaine hid that in her heart, She knew. you know what? I wish my wife would tell me, some other things that I need to know. She tells me lots of things, but I think sometimes she just needs to say, this is really important, okay? But she hid that in her heart. She never shared that with me. That's a miracle in itself that she didn't share it with me. But, she hid that. And then so here I am minding my own business, and I did say, hey, but if you need anybody to help fill the pulpit, I'd gladly come and preach on Sunday. So I'm preaching on Sunday. And I'm just preaching and just sharing the word and getting to know the people of the church here and the heartbeat and just hearing what God is doing, in this church and in this community, in this Mayfair community. And I had a conversation with Phil afterwards in church one Sunday, and I said, hey, how's your pastoral search going? And he says, well, it's not going at all, really. I said, you don't have anybody on the line? Or no, he says, no one. I go, oh. And I said, you know what? Share a little funny story. I said, Micah Parkinson messaged me one time about being pastor at the church, and Phil looked deep into my soul at that moment. It was one of those moments, seriously, it was one of those God moments. And he looks into my soul and he goes, yeah, and we're praying about that. And I just went, ooh, it just kind of hit me. And as it hit me, I just kind of went, man, God, I want to be responsible. Because I just preached that morning about hearing the voice of God. Can you imagine that? And I thought, you know what? Maybe I better practice what I'm preaching here, Johnny. And I better listen. And so we were about to go to the West Coast where all our family is and go out there every year and whenever we can to visit and see our loved ones. And so I said, you know what? We're going out to the West Coast for holidays. I said, you know what? I want to be able to sit on this a little bit and pray about this. And just all through that holiday, God just started to speak to Charmaine in my heart about the opportunity. And we came back and you know what? God, sharing that story just to say how God directs our lives. How he directs our lives. Maybe we're in one job right now and maybe it's just not happening for us. And you know what? Just giving that to God and saying, God, I don't know how. I don't know how this is all going to work. Maybe you're in a relationship conflict. Maybe you're in a place where, I've described that word stuck. Maybe you're just in this place of life. Well, you know what? This fall, last week I just shared about how this is a new opportunity of season. To just come back and just say, God, I'm going to bring you whatever it is, and I'm just going to throw it out there and say, God, have your way, whatever that looks like. I remember when I was not even a follower of Christ yet, and I was a pretty cocky young guy, and I just said, okay, if you're real, God, prove yourself to me. And maybe you're there. Because when I did that, I'll tell you what, God started to show up in my life and reveal himself to me. And the one thing that I know to be true is when we do those types of things, God moves in. And he does move in and orchestrate things and touch our lives. And that's what I did as a young kid. Just made the, kind of that statement, okay, God, prove yourself. Well, maybe this morning you would just say, okay, God, I find myself here right now in this life. Prove yourself. In this new season, why don't you just join with us? We talk about with us, and our overarching theme this year has been together, because we realize that no one stands alone. That when we stand alone, we fall quite easily. And the scripture in Ecclesiastes, there's a great illustration there in chapter 4 where it talks about, people alone are cold, they can be defeated, they can fall down with no one to help them up. And it says, but when there's a companion, that's awesome. But it says when 3 are there, it's even better. So together with someone else supporting, encouraging, and praying for us, to believe for us when we can't believe, to believe for us and to support and give us just a word of life when we need it, when we feel so dead and feel so drawn and life has just sucked it out of us. And somebody comes along and encourages us. See it together. And with God, with all of this, what an awesome opportunity it is for God to come in and invade our lives and just bring a perspective to us that we would have never dreamt possible. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine, that word living, and living it in such a way that you get up in the morning and you're excited for what's going to happen next? How long has it been since you felt that way? Maybe a while. You know what? The one thing that I know is what the scripture says about when God gave his son Jesus Christ to us. And Jesus said in his own words, I have come that you might have life and have it to the full. Well, you know what? Everything I do, doesn't matter whether I'm in business or pastoring or whatever, and you know what? Now I'm a bishop. Ooh, now you got to really listen to what I say on Sunday mornings. But you know what? Regardless of when I do it with God, wow, what a difference this world makes. What a difference it makes in everything I do. When I play hockey, okay, let's be practical. I'm a goalie. I know you go, that's an old guy up there. I play hockey, I'm a goalie. And yesterday, it was really cool because I'm doing this wedding. We're at the reception afterwards down at the Sheraton, and this guy comes up to me, and he goes, Johnny. And I go, Wayne, what are you doing? And he runs an insurance place downtown. And he comes over, and he says, man, that was awesome, and we just had this chit-chat or whatever. But you see, they know who I am. They know who I stand for. And you know what? They know that I love them. And the relationship I have with some of these guys at hockey is so unbelievable. The opportunity I've had to pastor people over the years and just being able to come alongside of them in life, to be able to love on them and care for them. You know what? It's all about Jesus. And I don't need a position or a title to do that kind of stuff. But we get to do it what? Together. Together we get to do this thing. And I'm just so excited. At Carpenter's Church, we have 3 core values. People is a huge value. That is one of our main values. For God so loved the world, he gave his only son. Gave it to who? People. And we're people, right? So in that value, we love people. We want to see people come into the fullness of a relationship with Christ so that they can live to the fullness of everything that they can. The other value we have is serving, right? Is serving. And we love that serving. And the kids are going to be coming in right now, and so that's an awesome thing. And then the third thing we have is Jesus. We value Jesus. We value Christ and what he's done for us and how he loves us, cares for us, and desires the very most for us. So people serving Jesus.